When World War II ended in 1945, Greece was one of the most devastated countries in Europe. Years of Nazi occupation had caused famine, mass executions, and economic collapse. Entire villages had been destroyed, and trust between Greeks had broken down. During the occupation, many resistance groups had formed to fight the Axis powers. The largest and most organized of these was Elas, a resistance army dominated by communists. By the time the Germans withdrew in 1944, Elas controlled much of the countryside and had hundreds of thousands of supporters. Many resistance fighters believed that because they had done most of the fighting, they should now decide Greece's future. But Greece was already caught in a larger international struggle. Before the war even ended, Britain and the Soviet Union had quietly agreed that Greece would remain in the Western sphere of influence. Stalin chose not to intervene directly, even though Greek communists expected support. When liberation came, British troops entered Athens to support a government that included the monarchy and conservative forces. Almost immediately, tensions exploded. In December 1944, fighting broke out in the streets of Athens between communist fighters and British-backed government forces. Tanks, artillery, and air power were used inside the capital. These clashes, known as the Decembriana, shocked the population and made it clear that unity after the war was impossible. Although a peace agreement was signed in 1945, it did not solve the underlying conflict. Former resistance fighters were arrested, left-wing supporters were targeted, and violence continued, especially in rural areas. By 1946, Greece slid into full civil war. The communists reorganized into the Democratic Army of Greece, operating mainly from mountainous regions in northern Greece. They used guerrilla tactics, attacking army units, supply lines, and police stations. The Greek government controlled the cities and major infrastructure but struggled to defeat the rebels in difficult terrain. At first, Britain continued to support the government, but after World War II it was economically exhausted and unable to maintain its role. In 1947, the United States stepped in. President Harry Truman announced what became known as the Truman Doctrine, declaring that the U.S. would support countries threatened by communism. Greece became the first real test of this policy. American aid transformed the war. The Greek army received modern weapons, aircraft, training, and military advisors. For the first time, the government forces had overwhelming firepower. Meanwhile, the communists depended heavily on support from neighboring communist countries, especially Yugoslavia. That support would not last. In 1948, Yugoslav leader Josip Broz Tito broke with Stalin. As a result, Yugoslavia closed its border with Greece. The communist fighters suddenly lost their main supply route for food, weapons, and medical aid. This was the turning point. By 1949, government forces launched large-scale offensives using air power and superior numbers. The Democratic Army was pushed out of its remaining strongholds. Many fighters fled abroad, while others were killed or captured. The Civil War officially ended in 1949 with a government victory. The cost was enormous. Around 100,000 people were killed, hundreds of thousands were displaced, and thousands of children were separated from their families, sent either to government camps or to Eastern Europe by communist forces. Politically, Greece remained deeply divided. Former communists were imprisoned, exiled, or banned from public life for decades. Speaking openly about the war was often dangerous. Internationally, Greece became firmly aligned with the West and later joined NATO, playing a key role in Cold War strategy in the Eastern Mediterranean. The Greek Civil War is often forgotten, but it matters. It was one of the first proxy wars of the Cold War, showing how global superpower rivalry could turn a shattered country into a battlefield. And it stands as a reminder that for some nations, the most painful war begins after the enemy is gone.